it's the human element is still going to be necessary in a world of AI. There are going to be outliers and challenges that you're going to see in different recommendations where having that individual that has experience, understands within the field to be able to interpret the data correctly is absolutely correct.
Hello, my name is Robert Schmidt. I am Deloitte's Chief IoT Technologist, also known as Mr. IoT. Welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT. And today my guest is Dave Kuder. You are leading for the US Artificial Intelligence, or short AI. Welcome to the show.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. This is great.
It's great. I'm super excited to talk about AI. I went to a Singularity University event and Ray Kurzweil said, now is the time for AI. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it is everywhere and omnipresent in all of our conversations across all of our domains, across all of our clients at all levels of the organization. We're having conversations there, and that's actually what's been fantastic about it. It's coming, demand and questions are coming from everywhere.
So help us talk about what does that mean for the consumer? What does it mean for the worker? Give me a few examples of where we see AI today, and sort of like take it out of this omnious, somebody is making decisions for me, into what really happens.
So it's interesting. One of the areas I start with on AI, it's really confusing for a lot of folks because it has, the challenge with AI is it's a temporal definition. Like if you were to take a look at the dictionary about AI, it would say, look at artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer to replicate human intelligence, and that's changed over time. Like if you went back to the 60s, you took a look at, did you ever see Hidden Figures? That movie there, they had human computers back then. Back then, the scientific calculator was artificial intelligence. Today, in 2019, not even close. What is it today? It's a whole host of technologies that you're likely familiar with. Speech and voice recognition, recommender systems, biometrics, text and natural language processing, natural language recognition. These are some of the technologies you see today that reflect artificial intelligence. 10 years from now, it's going to be something different entirely. But those are a host of the technologies. And you would ask, like, well, how do you know that? Well, we went out and looked at all of these companies, took a look at about 200 companies that are out there that advertise themselves to be AI, and really compartmentalized into is what is really are they bringing to the market that's different than what we've seen in the past. So it's what's most interesting about it to me is that's a market perspective. It's telling you what the market is saying AI is today. It's not a Deloitte point of view. It's not a definitional point of view. It's actually where the market is today.
What fascinated me about big data was that I thought big data was great, but it was sort of like, now we're just going to collect a bunch of data, and it's so much data that we don't know what to do with it. What my vision or what my dream is that AI actually helps us find the meaningful data in big data. Is that a fair kind of summary, or is it a good way to think about it?
I think it's a great way. I mean, AI is able to go after AI is able to do a couple things. In some cases, it's able to help you ask the right questions, which you can imagine is a great technology. Is like, what actually are some of my challenges? One of the companies that we do a bit of work with and has a very unique product there does a graphical display. One of their more interesting use cases I found to be has to do with, for example, quality on a manufacturing line. So how do you understand where within the entire supply chain or our process are we actually introducing defects into the challenge? And one of the unique aspects of their solutions is to provide a visual perspective on understanding where some of the points in your data set could be introducing some of the commonality or the challenges within that process there. And as you can imagine, within for a vehicle manufacturer within their supply chain, the amount of data points you get from both IoT, for example, on the assembly line, all the way through the warranty process in terms of field repairs, and the amount of data that's involved there to draw those conclusions is pretty significant. So that's where asking the questions and then actually dealing with the data up front provides immense opportunity for a lot of our clients.
It's fascinating. You took my question actually and made it not even about the answer, you made it about the question. It's sort of like, yes, we're having so much more data now. We're collecting data through sensors, me and us in IoT, we want to put more sensors on things. But you're saying it's not even about having the answers to the question, it's actually asking the right question.
Absolutely. It's one of the interesting things. One of the we're doing a hackathon. And what's so interesting about the volume of data we're going to be taking a look at there, one of the major benefits our clients can get from us there is actually not our folks working through problems. It's the exposure to a broad, diverse set of individuals asking a variety of different questions to understand how to improve performance. So I guess when you take a look at how do you improve the performance of, be it an NBA team or an NFL team, the question that a lot of folks are struggling with is, what is actually the right question? What do I actually have to do? And the exposure to those individuals that have the ability to work with the data, I think, is one of the largest opportunities they have. It's about asking the right question and getting access to the folks that are going to do that.
I just had this flash. It's so funny. I was thinking, whose job is it to ask the right question? When I'm in a room, I always thought that, well, I still think that one of the big benefits I bring, and us as consultants bring, is we bring an outside view. We ask questions that haven't been asked before. Are they becoming consultants to us? Is AI becoming a consultant to us in a way that it asks the question that haven't been asked before?
I think it's a fair way of looking at it. I guess when you think about asking the right questions, when you think of the old metaphor for consulting would be your doctor. That's one of the most valuable things that your doctor's providing is the diagnosis of the condition and asking the right questions about what you've been through and what's been exposed to. That's one of the things you get. And AI has the ability to come at problems from different angles that you haven't seen before. It's the opportunity to present to you different areas or angles of attack, perhaps, that you're taking a look at to different problems, to offer up unique and valuable solutions. When you think of all the AI going on in the medical field, that's one of the reasons it's an extremely hot area in the area of diagnosis, because how can we actually come after treatments, disease identification in different ways, not just from an efficiency perspective, but really moving the needle on effectiveness of identifying the right path forward.
So I'm like, I want to get to some of the technology stuff, but I want to just dive into this one more time in terms of like change management. I read an article about how executive management really struggles with the amount of data, because they might get a data set that tells them one answer, but their manager that's been sitting in this job for 25, 30 years tells them something different, and it's much easier to trust that person I've trusted all along than the data. How do organizations deal with these new questions that come out of artificial intelligence? How is the acceptance of this? Do we see a lot of change management in this?
It's an interesting question. I think one of our perspectives as a firm more broadly, but one of the things I think a lot of companies are struggling to adopt is it's the human element is still going to be necessary in a world of AI. There are going to be outliers and challenges that you're going to see in different recommendations. We're having that individual that has experience, understands in the field, to be able to interpret the data correctly is absolutely correct. And that's where one of the biggest benefit areas that we see in AI is going after, I tend to think of it as top line or the non-cost reduction areas, where a lot of focus today is on AI business cases as it relates to cost. Why? Because it's the easiest way to quantify a business case. You can go to it. Where's the biggest opportunity? In the areas like risk, effectiveness, revenue, top line, where it's the opening of the business case is absolutely, why wouldn't I keep some of these professionals that are involved, absolutely involved, because the cost of a mistake is 10x the cost of the efficiency there. And the business case absolutely supports it of what you're going after. And I think that's the trade-off a lot of organizations are going after, of trying to sort through on the use case level. Am I going after cost, or am I going after a fundamentally different use case that I want to apply AI to?
Give me a client example that we can talk about, something interesting we've done in the space of AI. What was the problem? How did AI help? Where did they take it?
So I'll take one we have used for a while, and we do a ton of work with here in in the U.S. And I would say it's been going on for a long time. A lot of folks find insurance, for example, to be a bit old hat. They've been one of the largest possessors of data. It's interesting when you say data science. A lot of the running joke in insurance is we've had data science for decades. They're called actuaries.
Exactly.
But it's new and it's kind of germane to that field.
But I always thought of insurance as statistics, not so much data science. Is that true?
The difference there is now how you're starting to apply it. When you're talking about statistics related to mortality, morbidity, it makes sense. But now when you're starting to leverage, for example, natural language processing to bring additional data from... No, absolutely.
My dad was in insurance for his life, so I got to hear about insurance and mortality rates for my whole entire youth growing up. So
no, I mean, it's a great question. And a lot of the differential between AI and between analytics absolutely becomes a bit of a gray area or blurry line for folks. But like, where would it be in this area? When you start taking a look at electronic medical records, and a lot of that information comes in text. So the ability to interpret natural language to get to data that you can actually start to incorporate into your models around morbidity and mortality of whether somebody's going to die or those levels that is the AI being added to many traditional processes.
And so with this client, what have we done and what have they done?
With many of our clients, we use a lot of, or do a lot of work related to predicting the riskiness of assets, or going above and beyond where traditional actuarial science would go, is bringing in different data sets to those areas. And where clients struggle with there is you have your traditional actuarial work, so how do you go above and beyond it? And where we have found a bit of a niche in the field has to do with the area of small business insurance would be an example. And why is that? In the small business area, you have a ton of uniqueness as it relates to each individual business. When you talk about a barber, when you talk about a small restaurant, each one of those are fundamentally different. A lot of your actuarial projections at the high level can make a lot of sense, but now when you get down to the individual level, you start talking about a lot of one-off differentials that make different small businesses better or worse risks. And where we apply AI there is to help you make a better recommendation on, does this risk make sense to take on, and how does it make sense to price that risk fairly based on the riskiness of the asset. And we do a tremendous amount of work there for insurance companies across the United States in that area. It's been tremendously effective for us.
So what happens then? You look at data, you analyze, and you find out that certain characteristics of certain small businesses give you better indications of how risky it is. So you'd lower the premium for the less risky, and then you raise the premium of the more risky?
You raise the premium for the more risky. That's exactly how you do it.
So if I make this very personal, then someone who isn't as fit as you, like me, does that mean I should pay more health insurance? And I know maybe this is becoming now more of a, I don't know, what do you think? Because I think it would probably be fair, because the risk is probably higher.
Let me bring up the one question that I think is perplexing for a lot of folks when it relates to insurance. It's when you have an accident, are you more or less risky than you were yesterday?
I'd argue no.
And the challenge with insurance is yes. You're right. You are no more risky than you were yesterday. I know more about it. And I know now that you are riskier, so I can price you more effectively. And the challenge is, since you had an accident yesterday, I know you are a worse risk than you were the day before, because I have more information into your total body of basically riskiness that's there. But that's the challenge for a lot of folks, is working through that question of, all right, I've been in an accident, am I more risky or not? No, you're not. I just happen to have more information about you, so we're going to price it more accurately. Because it turns out, the nature of insurance, and why this is a big marketing play for a lot of insurance companies around accident forgiveness, one of the absolute most indicative indications if you're going to have another accident is, have you had an accident before? Turns out that's one of the biggest drivers of whether that's going to happen again. But similarly, when you're dealing with challenges in other areas, that's the interesting thing to wrestle with. So you went after
my lower health.
Now, who pays? I guess that's one of the...
health insurance is a tricky topic anyhow, as it is.
We're moving off of it, but this is the fundamental thing, what I love about insurance. The purpose of insurance is to allow collective risk for that area. And what I love about that industry in general is you don't think about it oftentimes, but like society almost couldn't function without insurance. You wouldn't be able to buy a house without insurance. Why? Because nobody would insure a mortgage if you actually didn't have collective insurance to go buy. And health insurance is another area where you've got different objectives that you're trying to look at there, and how much some of that actually gets out of the business side and is a little bit more, as you can tell. It's in popular topic of discussion right now of how should we as a society take a look at that. And I think that's where some of the interesting debate is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you talked about something my dad always said. It's about the shared, how you share risk with each other, right? And how you enable each other to do some things you couldn't do on your own. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's super interesting. I think it's actually also interesting from a data gathering point of view, right? Because I think it changes behavior. I love the auto insurance example where I think that, we have many ways, our home insurance, we have many ways to really measure how safe is our house around, if we have a sensor for a water leak, we'll find a water leak much earlier. And I should get a benefit out of that if I insure my house and those kind of things. So I find that interesting.
It's interesting when you talk about data, there's a tremendous dialogue that goes on now related to privacy. And one of the at least interesting topics of conversation have had on that, it's like, I wonder, like, not to say that anybody wants a quote unquote breach, but one of the questions I guess I ponder myself is, at what point does it just become accepted principle that your data is going to be out there? Like, it's just going to happen. I've got to get another card. It's so common that it's going to be out there. Even on the security side, it's interesting. I find some of the topics right now are less about breach, which doesn't mean companies aren't trying to protect it. It's more about protecting your IP. It's about more on the nation state level is where some of the conversations are around protecting information, where a lot of focus is right now, versus other areas. And that's where the privacy dimension is an interesting evolving topic, and how much are consumers, how much are you and I willing to actually get up in terms of for a discount or for some other benefit that's going to be offered to myself. And that's, I'd say that battle, if it's a battle, so to speak, is being fought each and every day related to on the commercial marketplace as it relates to your data.
We did a study for the IoT Solution World Congress in Barcelona, where we looked at which technologies have helped you the most at your work. Mm-hmm. And I was quite happy because IoT came up to the top, but it was only 54% of the people, 9,000 people across 8 countries, so it was pretty representative. But the thing that was interesting to me was that there was quite a diversity in age, what different age groups thought about it. So I felt I couldn't really answer this question, so I had my own little panel. I invited someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s, someone in their 40s, and then there was me. And so we talked about privacy, right? And we had the person in their 30s, she said, well, there's just way too much out there and I don't want them to know all of this about me. And the representative of the 20s, he said, I don't care. If that data helps me to get something, I'll be happy to give them my data. And it's interesting because I feel very similar to, I sort of like seem to be at some parts young at heart, because I can very much relate to this. Where do you feel personally on this? What's your take? Not you as Deloitte, but you as Dave.
I would say the interesting thing, I probably worry more about it for my kids than I do as an adult. So I almost see a bit of a differentiation there. It's like after you reach a certain age, perhaps you're like, all right, I'm making my own conscious decisions, but do you worry a lot about your kids and about targeting that happens there? I'd say perhaps that's where a lot of fears as a parent go.
How old are you kids?
I've got 2 7-year-olds. So I've got 2 7-year-olds that are out there that are just beginning in thinking how they interact with technology and targeting that goes on there and exposure. It's such a
interesting.
That is perhaps where I see the biggest delineation. And as an adult, I feel like it's all out there. Like a lot of folks know it, purchasing habits, so on. Like the most personal thing that you're trying to protect is I don't want telemarketers to have my phone number. That's the piece of data that you don't want out there, because you want to protect your personal privacy. You're like, I'm sick of hanging up on folks that are calling me because I didn't think I had given out my number.
It's gotten better lately, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So that's a really great one, to your kids and what do your kids do. And it's also about sort of like what do you teach them, right? What to do and what not to do. It's an interesting one.
How much do they expose?
Yeah.
What do they expose related to it? Thinking of, yeah, that is the interesting area, at least for me personally.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome. So let me go to the question I thought of before and I'm so curious about, which is really, where do we go? Ray Kurzweil said this interesting thing. He said, we can really only do true AI, machine learning, deep learning, for a year and a half. Compute power has caught up to it now. Cloud and so forth has really helped us. Where do we go from here? Where do you see technology go? Just sort of looking out a little bit, what's coming? I hear quantum compute all the time. We're just here at reInvent and Amazon announced something around this. IBM, Microsoft, they all announced something around that. Where do you see us go with this? What's the next big step forward on this?
Personally, where I start to see it, I don't know if I agree with that we were only going to do it for a year and a half, because I think it's common knowledge that most companies' systems and their data aren't in a position to take advantage of that compute power as it relates to truly taking advantage of the data that they're sitting on. So you've got a lot of organizations, and even if they could run it on their data, have they actually connected it to third-party data and other data sets they can to truly take advantage? So I think there's a ton of opportunity there. Where I personally see you're going to start to see a lot of the advantages starting to combine different, what are right now bespoke and very narrow skills, into starting to combine them. So if you're going to start to see that start to creep up very quickly into different areas and special skill sets and connectivity to systems, that I think is going to be truly game-changing for a lot of folks, and the ability to rely on right now kind of a narrow digital system to a more general purpose. And that's really the evolution you're going to start to see with AI. And everybody thinks of HAL from 2010 and some of the examples that you have out there. I think you're going to start moving closer to that faster than folks think. Now, is it going to be HAL? No. But are you going to see your digital assistant start to take advantage? And I think one of the challenges a lot of companies are going to have to wrestle with as it relates to, for example, a lot of the cloud providers that we deal with here. Even for some of our largest companies that are out there that have data sets that are unique to them, are they going to want to take advantage of, for example, the power of the natural language processing based on working with the entire US and global population? Or are they going to constrain it to some of the functionality that just sits within their own data sets? And that's going to be a big challenge, because I think the technology, just the sampling and the aggregation of data for key functions there is likely going to sit in with some of these large platform providers that are just, by the nature of sitting in every home, are going to be very popular, or are going to be very effective in their delivery of some of these next generation services that are founded on AI.
Well, thanks for being on Coffee Chat about AI and how we think about it, how you think about it, and thanks for joining.
Wonderful, Robert. Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, another Coffee Chat is coming to an end. Thank you for watching. If you missed any of today's show, any past shows, please check out our playlist on YouTube. We also have a podcast now, so check that out too while you're driving. And with that, I'll say goodbye and till the next week.